guys! It's Skully. Welcome to Skully's Creations. I'm Skully, and today we are talking about Pest. Yes, everyone's favorite subject. But before we get into it, if you like creativity and plenty content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. So I am going to talk today about common and uncommon pest. So our common pests are going to be fungus gnats, mealybugs, spider mites. Let me look at my notes. I always have notes because you just never know when you're gonna forget. Thrips are a common house plant pest, scale, and so these houseplant pests can be usually identified either on the leaves of your plants or in between the crevices of your plants. And they are going to be treated differently too. So depending on what pest you're dealing with in your home, it depends on the treatment. So for example, fungus gnats. And I'll go deep dive in each of these, how to control and how to the treatments of each individual in a later video, but I'm just going to give you the rundown of the common and uncommon stuff. Because the uncommon stuff, let me tell you, I'm currently dealing with that now. I don't know if you noticed, but this used to be filled with plants, and well, I have an infestation and we'll talk about that later. But let's start with fungus gnats. Fungus gnats are really easily identified because there's a lot of flies just flying around and you just want to go, they're pretty slow so you can do that. But if you don't want to, the best treatments are going to be sticky traps and using mosquito bits. Now, I use it as I water. So what I'll do is put the mosquito bits in the water, either let it set or shake up the water and water my plants that way. What the mosquito bits are going to do are going to kill any of the babies that are still crawling around and the larvae. So that's what the mosquito bits are going to do. Those sticky traps, what that does is kill the adults that are flying around so that way they don't lay any more eggs. After a few weeks of this, I would give it about a month of that treatment, I promise you, you will have at least a significantly less infestation with your fungus gnats. Another thing that you can use is diatomaceous earth or hydrogen peroxide. So a hydrogen peroxide mix with water, that will also kill the fungus gnats on contact, but also, just so you're aware, hydrogen peroxide and water, or even mosquito bits and water, just some mosquito bits, will handle fungus gnats. They're not going to handle all of your pest. Now let's move on to mealybugs. Now, there's actually two types of mealybugs. We're going to talk about the common one first and then the uncommon one next, which is what I'm dealing with. I didn't know. But anyways, jumping ahead. Okay, so mealybugs are usually spotted in between the crevices of your plants or on a stem or on a leaf, and they look like little white fuzzies, and you'll see them moving around. Now, the best way to get rid of these are pretty easy to get rid of. You can wash your plant down spray it down with some water, or you can use, I think it's alcohol or hydrogen peroxide. Don't quote me on that, but one of the two, I guess you can use hydrogen peroxide, but some type of alcohol with a Q-tip, and you can scrape those mealybugs off. Okay, so that's one way to do that. That treatment is also significant to treating scale. So scale is another common pest, which you will see more than likely, again, either on the leaves or on the stem of the plant. Yeah, so that's how you would treat that. I'm sure there's also other ways to treat it other than just the hydrogen peroxide alcohol method. There is systemics, and I've never personally used those 'cause I've never dealt with it. I prevent this because I clean my leaves quite often, so I thankfully have never dealt with that. Scale or thrips or even mealybugs. I've never dealt with anything like that. I've only dealt with fungus gnats. However, you could use a systemic insecticide in order to clear that as well. I will have either links or photos up above so you can see the systemic insecticides that you can use to also kill. Now, these aren't going to be totally safe for pets. So if you have pets, just please be aware. Let's see what else. Diatomaceous earth is a safer alternative. What you can do with diatomaceous earth, you can either mix it in with your soil, or you can sprinkle it on top. And what that does is whenever, if you have any pests lurking in the soil, what that's going to do is basically shred the insect, which sounds quite horrible, but they're killing your plants. So go ahead and kill those things, okay? So yeah, that's another one. Thrips and aphids is another one that's common in the pest world. Now, thrips and aphids, I think you would just be better to use a systemic insecticide in order to treat those. That looks like, at least out of everything that I've heard, it seems like a pain to deal with thrips and aphids, and you might need to use a systemic insecticide for that. If you have any other suggestions on how to deal with that, because again, I haven't personally dealt with it, but I do want to inform you of the pests that you could be dealing with while having houseplants. Oh, spider mites. Spider mites is another common houseplant pest, and those are a little harder to see. However, if you see webbing on your houseplants, just check. You can use a magnifying glass, but they should be visible to the naked eye, but I'm not 100% sure. So just check if you see webbing. That could be a sign of spider mites. Now let's talk about the uncommon pest. And I barely found any information on this, and I had no idea what I was dealing with. And now I do. So let's talk about root mealybugs. Okay? Mealybugs and root mealybugs are two completely different bugs. Mealybugs are white, and again, they're either on the top of your plant, so they're visible. Root mealybugs are not visible. They lurk in your soil, and what they do is suck up the sap of your plant's roots. So, how do you know if you have root mealybugs? Well, it's kind of difficult to tell, but here's how I found out. Number one, I had yellowing leaves. I have a moisture meter, so I knew I wasn't over or underwatering my plant. So I thought, okay, maybe this just has something to do with the fungus gnats, because again, I don't really have fungus gnats anymore. Maybe I've seen one, if that. Not really though. Like I said, I've treated that for the past few weeks, and that pretty much eradicated my problem with the fungus gnats, so that's pretty good. However, I didn't know what it was, and again, because I treat my plants with the mosquito bits and water, whenever I would water it, I did see little white bugs crawling on the saucer. And I go, well, that looks like a mealybug, but is it a mealybug? And for a while, I just thought that it was a fungus gnat, like crawling its way, like a baby fungus gnat crawling its way out. But it didn't look like a fungus gnat baby, because if you notice, fungus gnat babies, whenever you see them in the soil, they look like silver babies, right? And this didn't look silver or shiny, it looked white. But I checked above for mealybugs and no mealybugs. So I was confused for a minute, and then I figured out that they were root mealybugs. And what they were doing, they were reacting to the treatment that I was treating my fungus gnat issue with, which was the mosquito bits and water, and they were crawling out of the soil, and that's what I was seeing. So that's one way. Another way, I tried to treat my plant with hydrogen peroxide and water, and again, I would just see them crawling out of the bottom of the soil, and I would see them on the saucer. And I checked some of my other plants, and when I would lift up my plants, I'd see them on the saucer. So they were crawling out, and here's how I mistakenly spread these amongst most of my house plants, but we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about how I did it. Well, I guess we're going to talk about it. I'm a little ashamed. Okay. But I was trying to save water, okay? I was trying to save water. And so this is how I spread it. This is how I spread it. I had a plant. I would let it drain into a bowl or whatever, and I would water my plant, and I would reuse that water to water another plant that I had drained from. Now, the problem with that is that's a real fast way to spread pest, and that's exactly what I was doing. I was spreading the eggs that were falling out from the root mealybugs, so those eggs or even the adults, and transferring it over to another plant. Also, I was sharing saucers. So if there was any egg or any eggs that I saw that were on the saucers, I thought that maybe they were perlite, because I also use perlite, and the eggs in the perlite, they look the same. So if I had any eggs on these saucers and I used this saucer for another plant to dry, what I essentially did was also transfer. So that's my biggest lesson that I've learned, is do not reuse your water. I know you want to save water. That's exactly what I was doing. I didn't want to waste my liquid fertilizer. I didn't want to waste any water. I wanted to, water on my plants. But again, that's how I spread everything. And again, I didn't even know root mealybugs was a thing. So how do you treat root mealybugs? It's a okay. I said it. It's hard and it's annoying. Okay, and it's not hard, but it's annoying. So basically, once you've identified, like maybe you might have root mealybugs, you have to take the plant out of the pot and look at the roots, and more than likely, and I did, you're gonna see white fuzz, kind of like you would on regular mealybugs, but on the surface and leaves of your plants, you would see that white fuzz on your roots of the plants. So on the roots of the plants. Unfortunately, there's so I saw that. So I clearly identified, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. Now what's the solution? So you can either get rid of the plant, which I wasn't about to do. This is pretty much there. It's my whole collection. I'm not gonna do that. So forget that option. And if you're like me and you don't want to get rid of the plant, don't get rid of the plant. I got you. The actual treatment is to either cut all the roots, and start fresh. You can easily do that with succulents, or maybe something that you just propagated. That wasn't a huge option for a lot of my plants, though. A lot of them were really well rooted. The roots were good, other than the little indents that I saw from where the root mealybugs were sucking up the sap which was so gross, but that's what it looked like. It looked like a little indent in my root, and this is where they were. So anyways, so that wasn't really an option, like cutting up all of my roots and starting over with all of my plants. No, but it is an option if you want to go ahead and start fresh. Absolutely do not reuse the soil. You throw that soil away in the trash, far, far, far away. Go, soil, be gone. You can't reuse it. It's too much of a risk to have those eggs floating around and then reusing the soil and you're back to square one. No, don't do that. Okay, so again, you can either cut off the roots, start from fresh. What I did was take off all of the soil, okay? And I soaked the roots of each plant all together, right? In not hot water, like not scorching hot, but hot enough where the roots are not going to be damaged and the mealybugs, the root mealybugs would die because they do die with heat. So what I did was I boiled some water. I let that water cool down enough where I could touch it. Okay, I don't know how hot it was or what the Fahrenheit, but enough where I can touch it and it was still hot to me, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it's boiling hot. It was still hot to me. So I figured, okay, well, if it's that hot, my roots can probably take it. And I dumped everything in that hot water and I let it soak for, I want to say about 30 minutes. I went back, I checked the roots. All of the roots were fine. All of them were good. We're good to go. So that so far was a success. So I'm glad I got rid of that. But now what I'm having to do is repot everything again. So I am using fresh soil. Also, what you want to do is disinfect everything. Everything. I disinfected this whole shelf where I had them because they crawl, so I don't want any of the root mealybugs to crawl back into my houseplants. No, not gonna happen. Mealybugs, root mealybugs, you stay there. Oh wait, okay. Ugh. Anyways, so yeah, water, hot water, soak the roots. That with the heat, it's hot enough where again, it's not gonna harm your plant's roots, but it is going to kill those mealybugs or what is remaining after you've removed everything. And I did part with some roots that looked really bad or looked a little, it just didn't look so great. I did remove those as well. So I didn't get rid of everything, but there was some that I was like, okay, no, that's too far gone. Because again, they had these little indents, and I figured even once I cleaned that it could cause bacteria growth. So I just got rid of that root altogether. After the soak, what I did was let the roots dry overnight. So that way when I repot it into its new medium, fresh soil, all good, disinfected pots, disinfected saucers, I put those in bleach. Okay, I put that in a bleach and water mixture. So that is good to go. Yeah, so brand new soil, disinfected saucers, pots, let it dry, repot everything. And that's so far how I'm handling the infestation of root mealybugs. But I really, really, really wanted to touch specifically on root mealybugs because I hear so many, there's so many videos out there on fungus gnats, on mealybugs, like regular mealybugs, spider mites, aphids, thrips. There's so many videos on that. I didn't even know root mealybugs were a thing. I had no idea. And I've seen videos out there too where it's like this is a way you can save water. And of course I want to do the most sustainable thing and reuse my water, but unfortunately you can't do that with plants. You can easily spread pest, you can easily spread bacteria. amongst plants. So if something has something, you're just spreading it to the next plant. Also, if you're gonna clean the leaves, go ahead and use a paper towel or use a microfiber towel, that's fine, but make sure to either disinfect before using it on another plant, because that's another way you can spread pest. So just avoiding these things. So so preventatives, and that's exactly why everyone tells you clean your shears before you cut into another plant that after you've just cut one plant. So disinfecting so you're not spreading. Yeah, that's a good one. Disinfecting so you're not spreading. Okay, that is that's solid advice. Okay, take it, please, please. So yeah, so if y'all want a more of a deep dive video on how to handle each of these house pests, I know I went through this pretty quickly, but I just wanted to mention some pests, and the one pest that I just didn't hear anybody mention other than like a few other YouTubers. They just I probably haven't dealt with it. And that's the thing. I was so paranoid about pest, and that's why I constantly clean. I didn't even realize I was spreading within with water, with just watering my plants, because I was reusing. I didn't realize that I was spreading the pests that could be lurking in my soil, because I was so focused on everything outer. So yeah, both outer and inner pest prevention is essential to keep your houseplants healthy and happy, and you not annoyed because you won't be dealing with them, right? Now, again, you're gonna have to eventually deal with some type of pest, but identifying the pest is very important. So knowing what you're dealing with first, so you can know how to handle it and what the best treatment is. I'll come out with another fungus gnat video, because that's a really common pest. I definitely know how to handle those. Those don't come in my house. Well, they did, and then I noticed them and I go, okay, on it, right? Also, just checking your plants before you buy them is a great way to prevent your houseplants from getting pests or having pests, is checking before you even buy the plant. If you see webbing, don't get it. Just start off with, well, I mean, you can. I'm not going to tell you not to, because you can do whatever you want. But starting with a healthy plant is going to give you more success because it's already healthy. And it's less of a headache. And if you are anything like me, I don't like dealing with headaches. I don't think anyone does. So maybe you are like me. Anyways, also checking the soil when you bring your plant home. Some people immediately change the soil. I don't usually do it immediately, but eventually that soil is going to be changed into a medium that I know is well draining and will hold moisture depending on what type of plant I'm bringing into my home. So eventually it does get changed, but just by checking the roots, if I would have checked the roots on every single one of my plants before getting them, I probably would have noticed the root mealybugs a long time ago and not had the infestation that I have. But we're learning, okay? Things happen. This is how we learn. And again, that's probably why I haven't seen many videos out there, is lucky for you guys, maybe y'all haven't gotten root mealybugs, but it was the one pest that I did get besides fungus gnats, and it's one of the most annoying because you have to do a lot. So yeah, I've split up this process into about 3 sections, into 2 sections for 2 days. I did half of my plants yesterday, which is what you would have seen here, and I'm doing half of my plants today. So yeah, that's it. Just checking your roots. So before you bring houseplants into your home, just check them for pests before purchasing. When you get home, check the roots. Oh, isolate your plants if you can, at least for a few days. at the bare minimum. I know some people recommend 2 weeks to a month, but let's be real, when you buy a plant, especially for a specific place in your home, you're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna look perfect here. Usually you just want to put it there. And I completely understand. I am guilty of that too. But maybe just for a few days, I do that. I'll isolate for a few days, unless I've already like repotted it, just given the fact that it was in bad soil, then yeah. But anyways, I think this is it that I've have to talk to you about pest prevention and some of the pests that you might deal with. If y'all want any more videos going deeper into any of these treatments, or preventing pests in general, by all means leave a comment down below. I would love to answer any of your questions. Again, the main pest that I've dealt with is fungus gnats and root mealybugs. However, I can do some research and help you guys out to give you the best advice on how to deal with other pests as well. So yeah, thank you if you stuck in all the way to the end. You're awesome. That's right. You is awesome. I appreciate you. And don't forget to keep it artsy, and bye guys.